Welcome to Epic Begins with One Step Forward, the podcast that reveals how to plan, achieve, and enjoy the journey of creating epic results in your life, business, health, and relationships. Here's your host, best-selling author and motivational speaker, Zander Sprague.
Hello, Epic people, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward. I'm your host, Zander Sprague, and today I am honored to be joined by Trevor Schade. Trevor, tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on here, Zander. I appreciate it. Yeah, I run about 4 or 5 companies now. I've started to lose track. My sister has convinced me that I am a serial entrepreneur. Yeah, I had a programming background and turned into Lean and Six Sigma. And for any of the listeners that haven't heard of that, it's statistical analytics, big data, efficiencies, and went into sales, which turned into real estate and several other companies from there. So now with all kinds of backgrounds in entrepreneur life, living, and choices that are both the pros and cons of it.
Absolutely. And I certainly understand doing multiple things. People ask me what I do, and I'm like, well, I'm a podcast host, I'm a TV host, I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor. I'm like, it sounds like I don't know what I want to do with my time.
Yeah.
But I do find that they're all complementary and they all work. So,
Yep. I've found the same. I've layered all of mine into it looks like it was part of a plan or a recipe, but I suppose that's because I wove it into having meaning. But yeah, it's all over the board for sure.
Definitely. You have a bit of an interesting background. And certainly one might say that you experienced what I like to call an epic unexpected. Those things that all of a sudden happen to us that perhaps change our life. Do you want to talk for a moment about your epic unexpected?
Sure. Yeah, I've had several. One of the largest ones that occurred to me was I've called it a total life implosion, and I really got a lot of understanding of other people, empathy, situations, because in about a 12 to 18 month window of time after I had already, I knew I had the world by the tail, and I knew that I was going down this road, and I had it all figured out, and I was, crossing 33 zone. I started going through a divorce. I then ended up having, the whole custody courts type situation going on. I had my career, which was in process design and process improvement for companies, corporations, consulting. The bulk of those positions got laid off and converted into other positions. So I got that laid off, you're not wanted feel. And I got to understand how people feel when that hits their life and they're dealt that card. And one of my closest grandparents went into hospice and passed away. And it was my first experience and interaction with close and real death and being in the room and all of that. I had so now I'm 100% self-employed, and I'm wondering, well, where am I going to figure out this shelter, this food, and am I going to lose custody? Because I'm amidst all of that with now shifting into, I don't have a paycheck. I have to go drum it up through either a consulting contract with somebody and get them to see the value that I can actually bring their company.
Yeah.
Or real estate sales. I had a real estate license about that time. And so I started leaning into that direction to try to somehow make some income. One of my real estate investments, my only one at the time, it was a 5-plex, a converted home into 5 units, and it got bed bugs. And it went through the entire system, and I had to let everybody out of their leases. And at that time, I'm in Nebraska. And so, there's a cold season, quite cold. And all 5 of those units, now I had to start carrying all of the utilities.
Right.
While on no income through the winter season, and pay the mortgages, and I started looking at financial bankruptcy and what was that going to look like. And did that affect custody again? It all kind of keeps coming back to that. And then, my system was under so much pressure, my whole body, and I wasn't feeling well, and I wasn't really taking care of myself and health because I was up against the wall and panicking a little bit. And I had a chiropractic adjustment in there, and because of the extreme pressure inside of me and in my system at the time, my artery wouldn't stretch a normal distance, and the inner wall snapped in one of my arteries during an adjustment, and it created a flap, and that flap slammed to the other side of the artery and blocked all the blood to the left side of my brain. And I have a TIA stroke. Right side of my body shuts off, my face, the whole works. And I go to the emergency room, and they have me under the MRI machines, and they show me where a blood clot hit my brain. And two days later, I retore it, and I had another TIA stroke that was worse, and I didn't have full strength of the right side of my body. And all of that was really the culmination of kind of hitting that epic moment, that low where I started finally shattering some of these beliefs I had. And the final straw that broke that camel's back, I was on the neurological floor of the ICU, and I had gotten out of the ICU, I suppose, and I was going to the neurological floor of the Nebraska Med Center, so world-renowned Nebraska Med Center. And I'm walking down this hallway, just, stretching my legs for the day. And I had already had 90% recovery, and it's shaped in the shape of an H, the floor. And as I'm walking down one of the legs, I'm looking in the rooms, and I see people laying there, and, most have, the silver hair, and they've got, somebody at their bedside with them, or they're alone, or they've got what I would see as a spouse or a daughter or something. And I can still see all these faces in my head, and in one room after another. And I hit that crossbar of the H, and I look across the reception and the elevators, and clear at the other end, I see this little lady with her walker, and she moves the walker 1 inch, and then she moves her feet 1 inch, 1 inch, walker one, and all of a sudden it finally shattered. And I remember I dropped to a knee, and I hit my hand on the ground, and I just had to catch my breath for a minute, and it hit me that I was the only person on this floor that could both walk and talk.
Yeah.
And everybody else could do one, the other, or neither. And that was where it finally shattered this illusion for me of believing that I had control.
Right.
I could control things, and I was in charge. And, that's not to take away from a lot of business consulting I do with somebody wanting to influence the likelihood or probabilities of their businesses and to have ultimate ownership. I'm not going to take away from that, but the illusion of control is not true. Influence is. And it took all of that together to finally crack that shell and that belief that I built up, that I had it all, and I was always going to be in charge. And that was my epic moment that really changed the perspective, the perception, the trajectory of my life.
Absolutely. And wow, that is quite a lot there, Trevor. And clearly you seem to be okay now. The right side of your body seems to be fully healed. You seem to be doing fine.
Yeah, a little paranoia. You sit on a right leg a little too long, and something goes numb. I start freaking out like things are falling apart again. But no, all good.
You get a headache. You're like, oh my God.
Yes, I have a little bit of paranoia, and it's been enough years now to where it's not that bad anymore. But yes, a little bit still there.
Completely understandable. We all have those experiences that just make us just a little, gun shy, as they say. Like you're like, even though it may not be so bad, you're still like, maybe internally you're like, ooh, reacting to that one a little. That's got the heart going. And I totally get that. I've had experiences, and then I'm like, no, I crashed on my bike 3 years ago, shattered my shoulder, and my audience knows this, so I'm not going to go into the story. But I'm back on. I've gotten back on my road bike, and although I do have moments where I'm like, just don't fall.
Yeah,
I was determined not to let fear be, not let fear be the driver there, because I think all too often things happen to us, and they are scary.
Yeah,
I cannot begin to imagine what that must have been like for you as a young man, having multiple TIAs.
And it was, you're right. It was scary. It was a fluke, it's like breaking a femur. Usually your femur doesn't just break, like something happens to cause it. So it was that situation. But yeah, in that moment, I remember pretty rapidly getting comfortable with, I could recover from this fully, and it could be as if it never happened. I could, heal from this, but only ever have use of half of my body.
Right.
And is this where I spiral to darkness? I remember all three of those very vividly and clearly twice going through my head, wondering which way does this wave crash? Because I don't get to choose. I don't
Yeah.
have a way to push this wave or control it or even influence it at that time. And yeah, it was pretty wild, pretty scary. But then, I hit acceptance pretty quick, and I think that helped me come to that realization that sometimes in life you don't have a muscle to flex.
Absolutely. And I mean, I know in my own life, I've realized that there are things I might want the answer to,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not going to get that answer. And I need to find a way to get okay with this isn't an answer. This question is not answerable,
Yeah.
and that's okay. And I something you touched on, which I think is really important, for the work I do with helping people, step into their epic, is you have a choice every day. You had a choice to say, do I spiral into depression and blackness and woe is me? Or do I make the choice to say, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm determined to be better? And there are lots of psychological studies that say your mindset about overcoming an injury, an illness, not even that, job loss, end of a relationship, some major life event, greatly affects your outcome.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. And I've heard people say things like, "Well, everything happens for a reason." And I have some belief to the sentence, but I need to tweak it a little bit before I can get fully on board. I think I subscribe more to everything happens for a reason if you give it reason.
Yeah.
Because I do think there's a participation component there, that everything can happen and that's all fine and good. But in that moment, when I was at that crossroads, that I could either go introspective, learn, study, and break that illusion of control versus influence, or I could fall into depression. There was a choice component there, and I could choose to give everything that was happening a reason and let it all have happened for a reason,
Mhm.
or it could have just happened and it could have dominated me, you know?
Definitely. Definitely. I like you seem like a man who probably does lots of reading about a whole lot of different subjects and sort of take nuggets out of each one and say, all right, oh yes, I'm going to add that to how I'm thinking about stuff. And I remember reading this book, and it was called The Buddhist and the Diamond Cutter. And
Mhm.
of this whole book, the one nugget I took away was that in Buddhism, there's this idea that nothing is inherently good or bad. It's how we interpret it. So I live in California. The sun is out.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
If you live in Nebraska, there are a few farmers in Nebraska.
Yeah. Yeah.
The sun being out may not be viewed as a good thing because
Yeah.
there's a drought and that's killing my crops and stuff. Inherently, the sun being out is not either good or bad. It's how we want to see it. Like anything in our life, how we choose to view what's going on, just like you said. Do I utilize choice and say, let me think about what all of this is?
Yeah.
Where's the message? What might I learn from this? So
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think there's a timing to it also. And I think a lot of people, especially a lot of us, we're very hard on ourselves. And if
we're
we'll
the
just
meanest people in our own life.
we really are. We really beat on ourselves. It's crazy town.
We're
But
horrible. We
yeah,
should be nicer to each other. I mean,
yeah.
to
To
ourselves.
ourselves. Yeah. Yeah. So I think, I think kind of a parallel that I think a lot of people can understand. If you break a bone, if you break a bone in your leg, you don't immediately start physical therapy. You have to lick your wounds for a minute. You have to know that this is not the time to make decisions. This is not the time to dive in and move forward. This is not the time to take how I feel and make something happen. Sometimes there does need to be a measured, a finite, a pre-decided amount of time if a doctor says, hey, it's going to take you 6 weeks to heal that, and then we'll start physical therapy. Well, same kind of thing. If somebody has something tragic happen in their life, give yourself some time to lick the wounds and do the lick the wounds phase. And, and some of those big traumas, I mean, they can take 12 months just to get your breath back and just to be able to make a decision of, well, now what do I do with it? And
absolutely,
we got to give ourselves permission to have that time, right?
Absolutely. And I'm smiling because part of the work I do a lot of work, talking about and advocating and working with sibling survivors, people who've lost their brother or sister. And I've written I wrote a book for siblings, a book for parents about it. And the funny thing is, it's great that people know about my book, but inevitably someone's like, oh, a colleague just lost their brother. Where can I get your book? And I'm like, I'm flattered that they are thinking about me and they know that the book exists. My book is not for the day after you lost your sibling.
Yeah.
It's 3 to 6 months after.
Yeah.
Because I know, because I lost my sister, I was in no shape for months to read a book about grief or loss or anything. I just wasn't there. And the same thing I do when I hurt my shoulder. I did not start physical therapy right away. Why?
Yeah.
I had to let stuff heal. It wasn't the time. And I think I used to work in the corporate world. I worked in startups here in California. I was reduced, enforced, fired, laid off, outsourced, downsized, whatever, all the different acronyms for, I didn't have a job now.
Right.
And I think the first couple of times it took a beat to go, all right, I need to get back out there. Not because I didn't want to, but you just have to sort of heal your psyche and your ego a little.
Yeah. And it's like any other muscle training, and it's just emotional muscle training. The more you go through some things and the more exertion that you have to do in these different areas, well, the stronger you get, you really do, and you get more resilient, or you can recover faster. I mean, that's no different than working out or any sport or any physical training that someone does or physical therapy. We're really pretty uniform in how we get stronger.
Absolutely. And it goes back to Daniel Coyle, who wrote The Talent Code, talks about basically building a mile-in superhighway and he's talking about people playing music or sports, but I also think it's true for your emotional thing. You had those experiences of loss or whatever, and it's not that it gets easier. You just have the tools to know how to deal with it, so it maybe doesn't take as long, because now you have the tools. You've been down the road. You're like, all right, yep, I know what's coming.
Yeah, I agree.
Don't know when it's coming. I don't know how long it may last. I may take a step forward and a step back.
Yeah,
but you have the tools, and it does. I know from my own experience in working with people, it does get easier. You've built sort of all of that mile in, like, oh, here's how to do it.
Yeah,
and I mean, think about driving, right? I assume that you've been driving for quite a few years.
Yeah, a minute, yes.
Remember when you first learned how to drive? It was exhausting because you spent so much time seeing every single sign and paying attention to everything. Now you drive down the road, and there's a lot of almost subconscious, like beyond your like what's going on. And you're able to deal with stuff, but you see street signs and speed limit signs and car blinkers and stuff, but you don't. That's all because we've, your body knows what to do. Oh, I know how to do this.
Yeah, I think every topic is that way. I mean, you can go into parenting, and the parallels would be the same. And you'd look at, well, did you know how long your first child was going to endlessly cry when they were young, and does that ever end, or is this going to be 18 years of this and you just can't get your head around it? But then by kid 2, you can see that. And business is no different. I mean, the number of businesses that I've started and failed at or didn't go the way that I wanted, and then others that it went well, you just develop a resilience in all of these areas the same way, whether it's your emotional stability or your You talked about seeing signs driving. I mean, in business, it's the same way. You start to see patterns that you're like, oh, yeah, I remember when this happened before. This isn't really a big deal. I already know how it plays out. I know the ending of
Yeah.
this now. And same thing when you go through an emotional trauma or hardship. After you come through something like that, you know that there is an end. And so the next time it comes around, it can't phase you quite as much because you know that there's an end. You know that you're capable of getting through it. You've proved it to yourself once before. And it's way less daunting because you don't have the fear of the unknown because it's no longer unknown.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's true. Look, none of us wants to fail, especially if we're doing a business. But the fact of the matter is, failure is part of this journey.
That's right.
You are not going to get it 100% right. You hope that what you don't get, what you didn't get right isn't catastrophic to your business.
Yeah.
But sometimes it is. I like to joke that as an entrepreneur, I've been very generous buying lots of tools that are supposed to help me in my business.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't use them anymore. So I paid for it. It's not that they're bad tools. They're just not the right tool for me.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think that happens in our businesses. You think, oh, is this CRM? Yes, I need a CRM. They're all great.
Yeah.
Are they doing what you need it to do?
Yeah. Yeah. And are they the right tool for you anymore, or are they the right tool for you yet?
Yeah,
Because,
exactly.
and again, pick any avenue, pick business or pick your emotional recovery. It's all the same. You may have certain tools that are needed now, and then after a while you won't need them anymore.
Yep.
Or you picked them up and they're the wrong tool from the get-go, or you love them, but you're not ready for the tool yet, but you will be in 2 years.
Definitely. So I'm curious about you. You say you have all these different businesses, but they're all sort of melded together.
Yeah.
Talk for a minute about kind of what it is that you're currently doing.
Yeah, I've run so I've got the real estate properties, and I've done some flips, and I've done single family rentals, and then I got into a large apartment complex and commercial syndications. So helping people take their investment money and be an owner of an LLC. And there's operators in there. And, let's say, for example, maybe you invest, and over the course of 10 years, you 3x your money on your investment through real estate, and you get the tax depreciations and all that. So helping people do passive investing and create wealth, definitely. Helping people on a one-on-one level and actually guided through that real estate world, definitely. Now, going in and speaking with groups, leaders, teams, organizations, companies, now we can start talking about culture creation. And, in one of my businesses, it's usually a very high turnover business. It was a real estate agent business. Well, in 5 years, from 0 to 26 agents, we had zero attrition over 5 years. Nobody didn't renew a license. Nobody switched brokerages, teams.
Right.
And so I'll go teach a lot of culture components to how do you inspire people? How do you learn enough about people that they want to be part of this and they feel seen and feel heard? And I don't mean that just as a buzzword. We use Gallup strengths, and people were looking at a wall of everybody's strengths, right? And so they looked up there.
I
and
use that too. It's great. I
love
the strength finders.
Yeah, and everybody gets to see their own uniqueness, and they get to see that their peers know their uniqueness, and they're allowed to just be them. It's wonderful. And so, doing that kind of consulting, and then a huge part of my background with the coding and the efficiencies and all of the Lean Six Sigmas, I really, from a very young age and an early start, I was outsourcing things, or I was setting machines up to run my processes. And so I was now able to scale and systematize so many of these different businesses with workflows. And so, if one action showed up in a business, a new contact, a new lead, or a new project that needed project managed, anything, I could kick it out to the right channels, and I could have it run through a very efficient path that nobody touched, and it ran by perfection based on rules. And then sometimes I needed somebody to touch something, but I didn't have to take my highest salaried person and have them being the one do it. And I definitely didn't need to have me as probably the highest paid person, because I was the one, that it wasn't that I was earning and paying myself the most money, but it was when anytime I took myself away from what I should be working on, we experienced the most loss. And that equates to my monetary contribution and value to the company. And so we needed me to be working on hardly anything that was extra or just anybody could do. And I got everything into the right lanes. And so I coach a lot of businesses and a lot of teams through how to set that up and how to think about it and how to zoom way out into the high level thinking and then get super granular so you can actually execute this process management and control or ordinance type set of working world. So those are the primaries. I run a marketing company. I publicly speak. I do keynotes. I talk to organizations and companies and work with people, and I do the consulting and then the real estate wealth creation. That's my wheelhouse at the moment.
Cool. Now, of course, I'm interested to know what are your like top 2 or 3 Gallup strengths.
Yeah. So I have a multitude of what you call amplifier strengths.
Yeah.
My sister runs a strengths Gallup strengths consulting company in Dallas, and my subsequent strengths amplify the top ones. So I am strategic to the 5th.
Yeah.
Individualization also multiplied, and then we cross into maximizer, command, focus. Those are my top 5. Yeah. So
yeah, I'm a maximizer, woo. Which when I first time I did, I did this and I came up as a woo, and I'm like, I was like, like is this? I'm in I did this when I was working in a really large corporation. I thought, this probably isn't going to be good. They're not going to like it.
Yeah.
And it turned out that, well, first of all, that's one of my strengths. So lean into your strengths.
Yeah. Agreed.
And it was really, I mean, when you read it, when you do the test and you read it, you go, yep, that's me. Definitely.
Yeah.
And it turned out that was actually they're like, no, having a woo is really good. It means you can get people to do stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's true. I get all kinds of stuff just because I've got a strong woo and make people feel good and maximize and stuff. So I do love the strength finders. I too talk about it when I'm talking to corporations about building their epic teams. I'm like, know what your team can do. Yeah. How can you manage if you don't know what your team can do? And if you have someone who's really good at being social and presenting, don't have them in the back room and have the person who's not as good at that, no matter what their position is.
Yep. I agree with that 100%. I'm all for taking individuals and having them just love what they're involved in and be inspired and be neurotic. I mean, being neurotic. We've all been on these projects and in high school or college or whatever. And, we were already completed with all the requirements at midnight, but we were just in love with what we were doing. And we got all bouncy and we worked all the way to 3 a.m. and then turned the sucker in. And it was way over the top. And I was like, well, if I can figure out someone's strengths and know what they just love to do, I don't even need half the metrics anymore because they're going to outperform.
Right. And it's not, look, when you're working in your areas of strength, it's not so much work. I mean, it is, but it's the stuff that intuitively comes to you. It just makes sense. It's like if you're really, really good at math, you look at the page and it's almost like the answers are right there for you. You're like, I don't know how people are struggling with this. I love public speaking. I get that for most of the world, that's like their top 3 biggest fears. And I'm like, I don't understand why.
Yeah.
A day I get to be on stage is a great day.
Absolutely. Yep.
And
I get it. I agree with you 100%. But you hand me a set of administrative tasks, I'll fall apart. And some people are like, they find the safety and the comfort in the structure and the predictability. And it took me a long time to understand that these really are all strengths and everybody has a preference and has the gifts. And if we can help them do what they love, man, everybody just loves being part of that culture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Trevor, this has been really an epic conversation. Boy, we've been all over the place. But
It has. It has. Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me on, Zander.
Of course. So if people are interested in getting a hold of you, how can they do that?
Yeah, they can go to trevorschade.com. I mean, they can throw my name into any search engine or social media, and they're all going to kind of feed back to trevorschade.com. And I have all kinds of contact info and even different avenues to choose from, depending on which of these 50 multitudes we hit on here today. Someone wants to talk about. There's even generic ones that just, what kind of conversation do you want to kick off? And then we start from there and see what I can help with.
Definitely. Well, I want to thank you again for joining me. I want to remind everyone that if you're ready to begin your epic journey, go to epicbegins.com. And as always, epic choices lead to the epic life that you want.
Get your gift copy of the award-winning book, Epic Begins with One Step Forward, at epicbegins.com. That's a wrap on this episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward with your host, Zander Sprague, best-selling author, internationally acclaimed public speaker, and licensed professional clinical counselor. To make your next conference or event epic, send an email to Zander at zander@epicbegins.com. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Remember, epic choices, epic life.